What's going on, everyone? It's the Roker Report podcast back again, and Sunderland have suffered yet another defeat in the Premier League.
Oh, classic. Yes, welcome back to episode 7 of the Roker Report. I'm your host, Damian. Today I am joined by the illustrious Power Rangers. I've got Tom here. How you doing, Tom? Yeah, not
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Actually. What about you, James? How you doing?
Been better.
Gav, well, we all know how you're feeling. Callum, how you feeling?
Yes.
I'm doing alright, mate, yeah.
Well, that's everybody. Right, yeah, you're joining us, as Gav said, off the back of a kick in the teeth from West Ham. Scored in the last 10 seconds of the match with their centre-back, which of course could only be done to Sunderland. So we're here with the fallout of that. So has anyone got anything optimistic to say before we get into this? No.
We did look a little bit better. A smidgen. There was a tiny smidge improvement this week.
We looked better defensively, Tom, didn't we?
Yeah, we did actually, mate. We looked a little bit better. I don't think we were amazing or wonderful, or I don't even think there was real signs of improvement, in all honesty, but we did look a little bit better.
I mean, Corney looked like the 15-16 god that he was last year, didn't he?
Yeah, he did well. Yeah, that's it, isn't it, really? I found that we were passing a lot better after we got into the game, after the first 20-30 minutes. I found that the passing technique for the team looks like they've actually been doing something in training for a change, which was good. And obviously I think having Pinar on as well, I mean, a lot of people didn't rate him. I think he did really well in that position. I think he was like the crux of our midfield for a short time at least.
Yeah,
I think
I
think the defence looked a lot better. The West Ham didn't have an answer really to our ability to sort of they couldn't play through the middle of us, and they were lofting balls in, and we were tidying them up. And the defence seemed to offer a bit more of a platform for the team, but the midfield were just giving the ball away. There's no quality there. There's just not a lot going on in midfield. I thought Ndong had a really poor game.
Terrible game.
It's one of it's just one of those things where there were, like you said, there were some promising signs. The defence looked better. Kone, looked quality. He was really composed. He didn't dive in for tackles. He was clearing everything up. But there's just too many. There's too many players not performing, particularly in midfield.
We have no
I think if we were playing a better side, we'd beat them. I mean, West Ham were poor.
Oh yeah.
They could easily be in trouble with us this year. I wasn't impressed with them at all. They did quite a lot, I guess, in the first 25 minutes, but after then they kind of went missing. We were lucky because, looking back at the highlights, we could have easily given away 2 penalties, I think, in the first 25 minutes. But on the whole, I thought, you know what, they were okay. They didn't create much. I mean, Khazri's missed by far and away the best chance probably for either side when he went one-on-one in the second half. But other than that, I don't think we created anything, did we?
I didn't see anything terribly impressive.
From you got to look at each game in isolation almost. And although there was some encouraging signs, if you look at the bigger picture at the same time, West Ham, like you've already mentioned, they've been absolutely dreadful. And to come away thinking, we should have earned a point would have been a good result against West Ham, who've been absolutely dreadful, in all honesty, this season, to me, is the kick in the teeth that Damian was on about. There was signs of improvement, yes, but against a team that have really struggled this year. And it kind of speaks volumes for where we're at, really, coming away clutching at straws against another lacklustre performance, unfortunately.
Well, I think we all said we'd give Moyes another week. We'd give him a bit more time and see if he can get anything out of the team. We've got some questions, as per usual. Sorry, I don't sound terribly excited. But yeah, we've got some brilliant questions on Twitter.
Hooray!
One of them's from Matt B, who's saying, how about this? Is there a realistic argument for keeping Moyes? High number of sacked managers isn't enough for a reason. He offers nothing. What do you think about that, Callum?
The only argument I can see being made is just blind faith, really, and that everything that's happening isn't really his fault. People want to think that eventually he'll find his team, players will come back from injuries, and it'll all be all right. But, people think he should be given time because, this hire and fire system that we've had has caused the damage, and Moyes is trying to clear it up. But, that seems to me to be not in line with what I'm seeing. It's not in line with reality. And a lot of the problems and a lot of the instability that I can see is being created by Moyes himself. For me, it just all seems to be based on hope rather than anything of substance. We're pretty much a quarter of the way through the season now, and we've got to deal in reality. We can't deal in wishful thinking or hoping that hoping and praying that at some point it's going to get better and he's going to turn into this, the Everton manager from 10 years ago. I mean, he's loaded the squad with players that we can't rely on in Premier League games, and he's spent good money doing it. And he complains about inexperience, and while he's bought youth, and he's loaned out players like Lenz, and he didn't sign Mbila, and he didn't sign Yedlin, and people think, oh, that's just a few players missing, and that it's more significant than that. There's something more institutional about it. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. I mean, if you look at Everton, that when they last season, I mean, they've added Idrissa Gueye and Ashley Williams to their team, and they make all the difference. It's made them a completely different team. And, we could have kept last season's squad together for like £10 million, £12 million. You make sure you keep Lenz, you tell him what he needs to hear, and you go from there. But Moyes has just made holes in the squad that didn't need to be there, and he's replaced them with less talented, inexperienced players for more money, or he didn't replace them at all. And people want to blame previous managers and that the club's rotten to the core. But these signings have his fingerprints all over them. And he's openly said that he wants young players, and then he says, oh, we're too inexperienced. And people feel sorry for him. I mean, there's no long-term job that requires mentioning relegation in the first home game. There's no secret genius guide to long-term management that requires signing a bunch of donkeys for £30 million. I want him to have another transfer window. I just, I don't want us to be afraid to sack the manager. It's, he needs to be the best man for the job, or he needs to go. And I don't want him to have more money to spend. He shouldn't have got the job in the first place, but he's got to go. For me, he's just got to go.
Oh, I don't know. Touch on a good point there though about the rotten to the core statements. And for me, that there has to be some other problem. There has to be to take managers like Martin O'Neill, Steve Bruce, Gus Poyet, to take all of those managers and somehow still year after year to be in the same situation. Mathematically, to me, just by the laws of average, has to tell you that there's some other fault there. And I don't know if anybody read it, but Poyet had an interview recently, and he just said that he could never read his finger on it, but there was something rotten at the core of the club. Now, to me, that suggests like a real open swipe at people behind the scenes. And if you look at it all, in all honesty, Ella Short's a businessman. He's never been a lifelong Sunderland fan. He'd never come in here expecting to just have a team that he wants to do well. He's not Roman Abramovich. Is Ella Short a man who invests in private companies to turn a profit? He owns a company that literally take distressed assets, so companies that are doing awful, and he figures out what he should do with their debt. Now, to me, that sounds a lot like Sunderland, a distressed asset with a lot of debt that he's looking to make a profit on. I don't for one moment see him as some chairman of the people who just wants us to do well. I think that's all a big smokescreen. I think he's here because he wants money. And I think the fact that we haven't succeeded in so long suggests there's something wrong with his blueprint that's hurting our club.
To play devil's advocate, Tom, I'd agree with a lot of what you're saying. He's certainly not blameless in what's gone on in the past few years, but be careful what you wish for. I guess you look at what's happened with other clubs and owners they've brought in. You look at Blackburn with the Venkis, and you look at Leeds with Italian owner.
Cellino.
Yeah, I mean he's as mad as a box of frogs, and you just think, yeah, he's not been the best, and he probably could invest more, but by the looks of it, we broke our transfer record this year. In pretty much every transfer window, we've spent 20 million plus. I mean, by the looks of that, money's come out of his pocket. So he's done. I guess he's done an okay job. Where the blame lies is people he's hired to deal with transfer business for me, because we've not had a good transfer window, barring Sam's last one since Steve Bruce.
Like, I mean, as Tom was saying, he deals in distressed assets, and his job is to manage debt for these distressed assets. Now, all of that debt, you say he's putting his money in, putting his hand into his own pocket to give us this transfer budget, but he's not giving it for free. That's a loan. That's a loan to the club, and it's his job ultimately to get all of his money back. Do you know what I mean? So it's a bit like an investment. He is investing, but he's not investing for the benefit of the club. He's investing for the benefit of himself, of his own bank balance.
I agree, and I think as well, David Moyes had some comments in, I think it was like August. So August the 27th comes out in my head as the date, and he basically said that Sunderland can't compete financially with other clubs in the league. Now, to me, that suggests he already knew that he didn't have any money, or a limited transfer budget to spend from, and to like come into the season already knowing that, we as the fans should be questioning why. Like, why do we not have this money? Why is Martin Bain coming out in the week saying that he's looking for efficiency? Now, to me, that sounds like cost cutting. I'm looking to cost cut. I'm looking to make this club more streamlined, but ultimately, I'm looking to get rid of things to make it more efficient. You don't add for efficiency, you get rid for efficiency. And I think on top of that, the very fact him and Moyes have this both journey idea, we're going on this journey but we're more efficient, suggests to me that they don't care what happens this season, that it's a long-term project. And I think it's unfair for us to, not unfair because David Moyes does deserve some criticism, but I think you've got to look at the bigger picture other than just shouting abuse at David Moyes, because ultimately he's not getting the support, is he?
No, he's not. And you looking at just from a football standpoint, I mean, Moyes, as you're right, we should give him as much time as we can. But I mean, we've dropped 5 points already this season from the 85th minute onward. Like, that to me says something about the way he's setting up his teams and his lack of concentration. That statistic is mad, because if you think it was at Saints away, we could have got 3 points there. Could have got a point yesterday. Palace could have easily have got 3 points. The season would have looked very, very different, wouldn't it, if we'd have even seen out a couple of those matches? Do you think if we'd have if Pickford hadn't made that mistake against Saints and maybe we nicked a point yesterday, do you think people would be as critical of David Moyes as they're being?
No,
Probably not. I wouldn't think so.
No, because that would be success in a sense, wouldn't it? That would show more stability than we're currently dealing with. And at the end of the day, that's it. We're not here to slag Moyes off as a person. I mean, we're not here to insult him just for the sake of it. This is all genuinely, it's performance based. It has to be. That job as manager of a Premier League team has to be performance based. You have to be constantly checked. If you go on, I mean, look at the state of it. Isn't this like the worst start in the top flight ever, matched only by us?
We equal our own record.
It's only Sunderland who are doing this. And oh God, it drives me on.
The only team ever to lose or not win in consecutive seasons after 9 games. Only a team who's done it was like Bury in like 1903.
Yeah, it was 110 years, I think it was. 1905 to 1906. Now so it'll be 111 years. Yeah.
But you see, Bury had a long-term plan. And
they all went on a journey after that. Their manager took them on a journey.
Yeah, well, you know, it's the famous Bury journey of 1903-04. We all remember that from our footballing lessons. But I mean, I don't understand like where this faith in David Moyes comes from. I don't get it. I mean, fair enough, there might be other stuff going on at the club. There might be these problems, but these sign up his fingerprints all over them, and he spent reasonable amounts of money. I mean, he hasn't spent a fortune, but he spent reasonable amounts of money, and that money could have been spent better. But he's spent on what he's gone out and he's bought players who he knows, and he hasn't scouted them, and he's just gone, oh well, I know him, and my new chief scout knows him, and we've bought these players who there's no, it's not methodical, it's not scientific, it's not properly done. And if you don't have time, you don't have money, don't change much. Well, you know, it's as simple as that. And he's made the decisions. He's got control. of the footballing side of things, and all I've seen is bad signings, bad changes, unnecessary changes, and the team set up in ways that doesn't make sense, and the players not motivated. That's what I. And I don't see why,
Bad changes. Billy Jones coming up for Wabi Kazri with 10 minutes to go has got to be the worst substitution I've ever seen. When you're looking at that bench and you're bringing on Billy Jones as someone who might get forward and nick a goal or something.
Wasn't it like
that was honestly, I was laughing.
That wasn't in mind, was it? That wasn't in mind, really, was it? It was a substitution made by a man who has no faith in himself. That's what I think. He brought on a defender in place of a midfield player, and to be honest, having watched the game, I didn't see where Jones even came on. Where was he playing? And what was the thought behind it? Was that a plan?
Like just chuck a defender, merely by being a defender of some kind.
It just seems so amateur, doesn't it? I mean, even if Kazri was tired, I'm pretty sure he could have seen out another 5 minutes of the game. It's not that, is it? It's having faith in yourself to be able to see a game out. And up until that point, we'd been fine. I mean, the first half was a poor 20 or so minutes, the first 20 minutes, and then after that we weren't bad. But the second half we were definitely in the game, and I thought, I was looking at around 90+1 and going, yeah, we've deserved a point today. We defended quite well. West Ham weren't particularly brilliant, but whatever they did have, we seemed to be okay with it. And the grand plan was to take off a midfielder for a defender. Now, I'm not saying that was the reason we conceded. I'm not saying that by any means. But what it did do to us was push us back a lot further than we wanted to be. And I know that David Moyes thinks that their goal was offside, and it's debatable, isn't it?
It wasn't like.
No, I thought it was initially, but I haven't watched it back now.
No, I've seen a number of clips from behind the goal, and I'm not sure we've really got a case for claiming that as an offside. But whose legs did it go through? It was
isn't that the first thing you're taught as a defender, to not get megged? And he's done it twice in 2 games. Like it's just amateur stuff, and it's not. I mean, we're nitpicking. All right, he shouldn't have his legs as wide open. In the context of a game of football, you really don't know you're doing that. I've played football myself, and if the ball goes through your legs, it's just one of those things. I think the wider issue is that he was even on the pitch. To be honest, he was underprepared. What was his role? Did we work on that at all? Was that the plan? If we're 0-0 5 minutes ago, we bring on Billy Jones for Wabi Kazri. It was just it just seemed like a safe. Illogical was the word I was thinking of. He did not have any sort of thought behind that substitution, and it led to me to their goal. And that's it. Every week we're constant. David Moyes he came out after the game, and he said something to the effect of, things like this happen in football. And I saw somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody quoted that tweet on Twitter and said, it's the 4th time it's happened this season, David. It's not the first time, and we're making the same mistakes. We bemoaned it at the start of the season in the opening weeks that his substitutions were poor, and we're still 9 games in talking about how his subs were poor. Well,
and it's just, for me, it's so frustrating. I'm so frustrated.
The whole concept of what we've got on the bench, who we've actually got available, and our squad depth, or rather our lack of squad depth. We've got another question from Dan Williams, who's asking, everyone's banging on about injuries, but how many first team players are actually to come in? What do you think about it, Don?
Injuries have definitely hampered us by all means, and we've spoke at length in saying that there's something obviously wrong at training if we're getting so many injuries that seem to be muscular. But for me, with maybe the exception of Lee Cattermole, realistically, who's going to come in that squad and make a lot of difference?
Kershaw, you'd say.
Kershaw's been sort of, maybe he hasn't been at full fitness, but he's been indifferent this season, in all honesty.
Agreed, but he cannot be any worse than what we've seen last few weeks.
No, definitely not. But I think at the same time, even if you bring those players into the team, how much of a difference is there going to be right now? I'm not 100% certain, in all honesty, if there would be a difference.
Sorry, I think in terms of as a team, the difference it would make at the point we're at, we're so low in terms of confidence that any sort of impact from a player like Kirchhoff or Cattermole would surely bring on players like Ndong, who is, to be honest, he is. I think he looks a lot worse than he probably is because of the players he's playing with. Yeah. The fact he's playing so much football. I don't think when we signed him we ever envisaged that he would play as much as he has, and he has played a fair bit. And if you had the choice, I don't know about the midweek game against Southampton, but at the weekend, you would. If you had the choice, you probably wouldn't play him because he was our worst player for me at the weekend. And he seems to be playing like a lad who's just a bit lost and he maybe needs to be taken out. And we don't have the options, unfortunately, to remove him from the situation, which is a big issue, really. We're a Premier League club and we don't have anybody to replace this guy, and it's becoming worrying. So from my perspective, the sooner you get back to centre midfield player to just give us some other options is that's going to be the big result.
You got to say that, like, I think Katz, Kirchhoff alone make an unbelievable difference. I think Fabio Barini would make a massive difference. He'd run. Not only does he work his tits off, but he just seems to make a difference. Duncan Watmore, don't get me wrong, works his arse off. You know, he's an okay player, but he's not. He's not Tom. He's not a winger, and his decision making is just. We talk about it every week, and you just think, I'd love someone to just tell him, you know, take a breath. You know, when you've got the ball, lift your head up and actually try and pick a pass, because he looks like a worse version of James McLean at times for me.
High praise. For me, though, I think you're right, but I think just even if bringing, like, say, Kirchhoff and Cattermole are fit and go into that team, surely just the confidence seems to be so low at the minute that we're looking for some lucky break to actually make a difference at the minute. I don't know if bringing players into the team would necessarily make a difference just because of how bereft of confidence we've looked.
I think Cattermole, you know, a couple of trademark Cattermole tackles in a home match would lift everyone. Honestly, something as simple as that.
I think
Lee Cattermole getting stuck in would make a huge difference. I think we're missing that, aren't we? Massively.
We're missing somebody to put the stamp on a game. Like,
exactly.
The first 20 minutes of that match at the weekend, West Ham had the run of it, and there was nobody trying to show, look, we're Sunderland and we're here, you know. There was nobody doing that. When that happens in a game, when the first 5 minutes aren't going in Sunderland's favour, you can count on Lee Cattermole to hon. And I'm not saying that's going to, you know, long term and all this. At the end of the day, in a game of football, sometimes you just need somebody to show that you're there, and we don't have that.
Exactly, right. I said to the lads when I went to the match with on Saturday, looked at that centre midfield last year of Kirchhoff and Villa and Cattermole. I'm sorry, no one wants to play against that, because you've got two lads in Cattermole and Villa who have got a nasty streak. They will go and end someone if needs be. And Kirchhoff, you know, he'll get stuck in as well. And at the present moment, Jack Rodwell is, I say every week, but he's awful.
We've got a question.
Awful.
You know, can I just to jump in there though? This really shocked me because I checked the stats after the game. I know stats don't tell the true story necessarily, but Rodwell's tackling stats were better than any Sunderland player on the pitch. He completed something like 8 tackles in the whole game. But I mean, to me, watching the match, he never stood out at all, and I thought he was pretty anonymous. But,
we've got a question about Rodwell, actually.
Kind of, yeah. I was just about to say, it leads me on to that, really, because is his job being fulfilled at the minute? Is he really a defensive midfielder? Because I know a lot of people are kind of looking at him now and going, what's the point in Jack Rodwell? But is he even been playing the right place?
Where is the right place,
though, Gav? The question we've got about him is if we're stuck with him until injured players get back, where's the best position for Rodwell? That's from Carl.
There's no word best to play him. I'm sorry, like, he was bought and he sold himself as this box-to-box midfielder, which is utter rubbish, because he can't get up and down the pitch because he's scared. He's not a defensive midfielder. He might have completed 8 tackles. To be honest, that might be true. I didn't see it. As you said, I barely saw him have any impact. He's not a goal-scorer midfielder. I don't think he can pick a pass. He's got no creativity. I mean, it's 32 games he's played, started for Sunderland, and we've not won. He's awful.
I mean, the thing about Rodwell is one thing he does do, which I've noticed is you got like your Catamol Kirchhoffs and people like that who they don't really get themselves into advanced positions or arrive into them. Whereas Rodwell, I mean, the problem is he doesn't finish a lot of the chances that he gets, but he seems to be one of the best midfielders we've got to arrive into the box and get himself some kind of chance, or that chance against Leicester last season when he came on and he skied it over the bar. With he was 1-on-1 with the keeper, and I mean he missed it, and he's not he's by no means perfect at all. And if we had our choice, we definitely wouldn't pick him to start a game because we'd never win. But he has that tendency to get into attacking positions that other midfielders don't. So, but it's very difficult because, like you said, he lacks the confidence and the conviction to finish the chances off, and he seems to go missing in games when he's in a deeper holding role. So it is a conundrum as to where to play him or what he is. But yeah, I wouldn't like to. I have to say, I wouldn't like to make that decision. I wouldn't like to try and find a position to play him in.
He's by fear, isn't he? I feel like his whole game's held back by the fear of getting injured, or
exactly right.
The fear of pulling a hamstring. He's terrified, and and I feel awful for him in all honesty, because undoubtedly he's a talented player. In all honesty, we've seen him in the past play very well.
Have we?
Not at Sunderland. I've seen him on Sky Sports play it really well, but I just feel awful for him. I think. We've said it a couple of seasons, really, but this is his make or break season, isn't it?
I'm past it, Tom. I used to feel awful for him, but now I've just got the point where it's mostly rage. Like he's just rubbish. I don't buy into the fact that I think he was a young Englishman who made his stamp on a couple of games for Everton, and I think the media ran with it, and it's one of these typical. He was a bit of a media darling, and he got all of these transfer rumours where he was linked with United, wasn't he? And he was linked with Chelsea and everyone. Next big thing, Jack Rodwell. I've never seen him perform for England or for Everton or anyone that warrants him getting any sort of hype.
Kind words there for Jack Rodwell if he's listening. Yeah, I'm sure this will help him.
Love you, Jack.
Really help his motivation. Right. I suppose now we should probably take a brief look towards Wednesday. Obviously, it's a cup match. I'd completely forgotten about it, to be honest, and I must say I'm proper dreading it now after what I saw yesterday. But yeah, we got Southampton on Wednesday. Can anyone feasibly see us getting anything from that?
Yeah,
no.
easy.
The problem for me is that Southampton have actually built their squad around playing in a cup competition. Obviously, they're playing in the Europa League, so they have a team essentially for the Europa League, which I would imagine would play against us. So there's players who will come in. They have enough depth to deal with that. The problem we have is that our depth is non-existent. So you would imagine players like McNair, Gillabudgie, Donald Love even, are going to come in, and Achabi maybe, and that just fills me with dread, like Christ almighty. Can you imagine an Achabi trying to play against Van Dijk?
And Achabi's Twitter skills today were superb though.
Something? I think it's become a case of who hasn't been blocked by Victor and Achabi.
Yeah, is he making an attempt to block all Sunderland fans so no one sees that?
Anybody who's pointed out the fact that he's an idiot has been blocked.
That's absolutely superb.
So basically, if you've tweeted about Victor and Achabi, just click on his Twitter there and see, have I been blocked? Because I have. Roker Report does exist, actually. We're still there. He hasn't blocked us, even though we put a tweet out that's got about 100 retweets regarding his God, well, I don't know how to explain it.
And if anybody who doesn't know what happened with Victor Anichebe on Twitter, basically he put a tweet up and it said, if he'd actually written it properly, it should have said, unbelievable support yesterday and a great effort by the hard result to take, but we go again. He forgot, though, whoever sent him and told him to put it on his Twitter, said, "Can you tweet something like unbelievable support yesterday?" So he managed to leave. He just copied and pasted the message.
The only question that remains really is, did the club send that message to him, or did he send that message to his PR people who runs his account?
He sent it to himself because he's two people out. He's like got a split personality.
Did you see the photo of him stood with Gillabodgy and Gunny on the pitch with the headphones and the phones out? Like,
no.
Before the game. He sent that to himself and saved it in his drafts. He was like, regardless of what happens, I'm going to save this in my drafts and I'm going to send it on Sunday afternoon.
Quickly looking back at the game, Saints. I mean, it must be lovely to support a team like Saints, wasn't it? Whenever they get rid of a manager, they seem to bring another manager in that works. Their club's built around a system that seems to work.
Well, that's what we're craving, isn't it? We're craving an identity, which is what we have. I mean, it doesn't matter what they do. They can sack any manager, they can sell any player, right? They've got a system in place from top to bottom that ensures they're fine. It's like, we don't have that. I mean, that I can kind of see. I know the interview with Martin, I know we're kind of diverting from the game here. The interview Martin Bain did with the club website where he spoke about having a long-term plan and Moyes in charge to foresee that, essentially. To me, it's not enough, really. Like, Southampton have built on this year on year to make sure that whatever they do, they're fine. And it kind of saw them through a tough period where they were in the third division, essentially, and found themselves back in the Prem. And like, Sunderland's plan is to what? Give it to David Moyes? I really envy them. Like, I just see them selling players like Sadio Mane for 34 million, and then they replace him with Nathan Redmond, who a lot of people weren't sold on when he was at Norwich, and then he's doing the job, and it's like, that's the player I really wanted at Sunderland. It's just a player that I really wanted at Sunderland, and we don't have the foresight to look at someone like that and go, 11 million, worth it. Let's go in and sign a player later. So I really envy them from that point of view. But on top of it, they're able to complement players like that with youth players who know.
Sam McQueen looked class last week.
Honestly, right, I'm not gonna like fill you full of shit or anything. I've never watched the lad play. I saw him on the pitch today, but I really wasn't paying attention to the game. But the fact he's playing week in, week out now, like the last couple of weeks, he's been starting games for them. It's like, who is he? He's come out of nowhere and he's starting games. Like, we are not in a position to give that sort of freedom to a player. We can put what more a gooch in a game, but it makes no difference because we're struggling. Like, they aren't struggling,
Yeah. If you look at the players, some of the players they've got rid of over the last few years. I mean, Klein, who's gone to Liverpool, Lovren, who's gone to Liverpool, Alderweireld's gone to Tottenham, Shaw's gone to Man United, Mane's gone to Liverpool, Wanyama's gone to Tottenham. There's so many players who've left, and that could cripple a team. Like a small team losing those sorts of players. Even if you get the money in, you've got to reinvest it properly, and you've got to have
the system set up.
And you've got to have a system where you can go out and you can identify the right players for the positions, and you get those players, and those players play in that system in that position, and it's unbelievably simple how they do it.
I'm just sitting there thinking,
it works.
Southampton, we're singing their praises, and then we've got Arsenal like 3 days later. Do you know what I mean? It's just like Christ of me.
Who would people play against Saints? Genuinely, what changes do you make?
Nah, you've got to just play David Moyes has to play. It doesn't matter. You need to try and get momentum. If you can get players to win, you need to get them in there. You need to take this like a league game.
Someone made this point, didn't they, around the QPR game? Like, should we field a weekend team?
Do we have a weekend team?
So it was the point made around the QPR game that should we field a team that isn't going to play on the Saturday? We did that actually, didn't we? We played like McNair, and he kind of shone a little bit, and we played a different system as well, where Ndong played wide right kind of, and it worked. And then come the Saturday, we're back to square one. I can't remember who we even played, but we probably lost. But the point is like, it was a Palace game. You're right.
It was Palace.
The point is that I think we're at a stage now where any win has to be taken seriously. So if we have an opportunity to beat Southampton, and gain some momentum from that. Bear in mind they're a Premier League team. They're going to make changes. Like I said, they've got a different squad for cup games as they have opposed to Premier League games, and that's probably better than what we've got. But the point is, I think we have to take it serious in the sense that if we can win this game, it means a lot more coming into the Saturday, doesn't it? It's like we lose, and then it makes everything look a lot harder. And I think you've got players like out of form who need a good performance, and maybe an away tie at Southampton's what's going to give them that, you know.
I might open myself up to a whole world of criticism here, but I'd genuinely consider maybe taking Defoe out.
I would agree with that.
I think if the way we're playing, lumping a ball up, Vichanichi is not very good, but he's a big lump, and you know, like if he's able to hold the ball up and he can bring people into play better than Jermaine can, it's worth a go. Unless you play two up front, you play both of them. I just think maybe
I would only
take
say
Jermaine out because
for the Wednesday game for the cup match, because I'm just convinced that playing this cup match a few days before Arsenal, you can almost get it's written in the stars that we're going to get at least 2 more injuries. Do you know what I mean? And Jermaine Defoe's played every game. He's obviously has to because he's pretty much the only real threat we have. And
I reckon we'll get something against Arsenal. I honestly, I think we'll get a point or something, and it'll paper over some pretty substantial cracks. I think
more than likely.
I can always see that team maybe bringing it out against like the big boys. It's on the telly as well, and you think this might be one of the games where they turn up. I hope so anyway.
Yeah, we all hope so, without doubt. We're not alone there. But I mean, talking about Arsenal then, I don't foresee us getting anything out of the Southampton game. Talking about Arsenal briefly, the quality in that team. I mean, like you say, we can get it. We can get a point out of it potentially. Potentially, we can get a point if they have a really bad day. But I'm looking at their players and thinking, we haven't got anyone to deal with that threat. Do you know what I mean? Every single player I look at, or midfielders, everyone, I'm just like, who's going to deal with that? Who's going to handle that?
But don't forget, we weren't bad defensively, Damian. At the weekend.
That was West Ham, though. And as I said earlier, they have had a really, really bad start to the season. I know it's almost as bad as ours, but they've actually managed to steal a couple of wins.
West Ham.
I mean, one of the things that we tend to do that I've noticed is, if Arsenal try and pass their way through us and score the perfect goal, then we'll probably be compact enough to withstand that. If they probably won't be sending crosses in because that's not their style, but we leave a lot of space on the edge of our box in every game, and if they pull the ball back and they've got someone like Sanchez waiting on the edge of the box, then that would be my concern, because we've seen it against Southampton, against Crystal Palace, against West Ham. There's goals have come from basically players hanging back on the edge of the box, finding space, and hitting a shot, and quite often it goes through bodies and it goes through legs and it goes in. It happened. It happened against Stoke as well. There's a lot of space on the edge of the box, and with Arsenal's quality, with the players that they've got, that I would see a goal coming from that rather than from anywhere else. I don't think we'll get anything. I think one of these things like, they're so good that we'll probably get a point because that's the way we do things. Of course, anything can happen in football, but realistically, you have to say that the way we're playing, the way they've been playing, particularly the way they've been defending, and the attacking players that they've got in form, in our home form as well. Logically, I know football isn't particularly logical, but logically, there's only going to be one outcome of that game. And of course, I'd like to see a different outcome. I'd like to see it, kind of be so unlikely that it just becomes reality. But if you look at their squad and you look at the way they've been playing, I know they weren't great at the weekend, but I can't see anything other than a defeat.
Bloody hell! This is so depressing, isn't it? I can't remember the last time it was this bad. Can you imagine this? Like next time on the next episode, will there be any of us left? Do you know what I mean?
Two defeats, not just one.
Yeah, you did. That's right. I forgot to. I forgot to make a big hoo-ha of that. I bet you're not regretting
So
it at all, Gav.
it does.
I bet you wish you'd stayed down there, bottom of the sea.
What the listeners can't hear or see is that Tom's just ate a snuff on Skype. Right, I'm just going to point. Sorry, I can't let this go. It was great. I've just watched him do it.
He's picking his teeth down. I don't know what said it. I can still feel it.
Cameras playing tricks on you there, mate. To be fair, though,
it was delicious.
it was absolutely lovely. But wrapping it up, though, I guess maybe that's probably the only conclusion to come to at the end of this is I'm more interested in picking me nose than any more time talking about our future results, unfortunately.
It's not always on the other side.
So yeah, all right then. That's well. Thanks for joining me as usual. Oh Christ, yeah. We look forward to Wednesday, I suppose now, don't we? I don't suppose anyone's got a ticket for the game. No, me neither. I think if someone offered me one for free, I wouldn't take it now. And Southampton's normally the one that I go to. I go there more often than any other stadium. But yeah, all right. Well, thanks for joining us on episode 7 of the Roker Report. Hopefully next week, I keep saying this, hopefully next week we'll have some really good news to bring you and not more of this utter depression. So yeah, from all of us here, this is the Roker Report signing off.